This is Forgive Me Father for Steam, developed by Bite Barrel and released in April of 2022. They already have a sequel out, and it's something I'm going to have to eventually try out. Got it in the queue just waiting for me. We have a first-person shooter in what I would describe as a modern retro-style game. It's definitely something developed on modern architecture and technology. We got a 7 gig in size, we've got high advanced audio, but the graphics here, they resemble two-dimensional comic books with heavy, thick black outlines. Kinda like somebody drew the graphics with pen and ink. I suppose the main obstacle someone might have with a game like this could be this style. I guess if you don't like this drawing style, you might not like it, but I've seen a bunch of other games like this, so I have no problem personally, and I can understand, though, in a day and age with super realistic graphic options, maybe it's not your thing, but what I can say is, from the get-go, if you're okay with this style, this game is definitely fun to play, and it was certainly fun for me from the get-go. I mean, I think I'm 60 seconds in and I was excited to play this. Like I said, we have a first-person shooter. You can play a preacher or a reporter in this. And basically there has been some sort of a cosmic horror event, and it has changed a town. All the people are gone, and I believe they've mutated into different types of creatures. It's set in the early 20th century, so we're not going to get the modern conveniences you would find in a game that has high advanced weaponry or cell phones, stuff like that. And it's set in the early 20s, so no conveniences like that. Instead, we get old architecture and stylings. The weapons we do get are going to be pistols, shotguns, and you can turn them into, like, mutated organic versions of these weapons. That's pretty neat. You start with the knife and a 6-shooter, you pick up a shotgun by the end of the first level. I played this on normal, and I don't think the first level is particularly easy, but it did feel appropriate for a first level, which is usually the training zone for most games. I think this one's balanced well enough, and they do kick it up a notch in the second level. Things will build in difficulty, it's just not a cakewalk, I guess, is what's important. We get a bunch of weapons to cycle through, I think 6 maybe? And these are things you have to find, and some you have to unlock along the way. For most of these, we're not going to get reload animations. The shotgun does give you a reload, but everything else doesn't seem to. I would personally prefer to have this animation because, well, it's a little bit more realistic, but it kind of also forces you to slow down a little bit and maybe plan a little more in a firefight. It also makes you have to switch between weapons because it's easier to grab a weapon that has ammo in it than one that doesn't, but you don't really have that sort of concern with this, unfortunately. I don't know. You can just keep shooting certain weapons. I kind of wish it was a little different. But I will say, especially for the pistol, aiming really helps a lot. I feel it more in this game in the first couple of levels than most. Those headshots are going to save you bullets long term, and you need to make sure you always have plenty of bullets, because you don't know what's coming around the corner. On level 2, I really started feeling the strain of less ammunition. And eventually you really need to pay attention to where the enemies are, and you have to sort of develop attack strategies to take advantage of whatever doorway, corners, or angles you have available to you. And it's something I had to do a lot in the early shooters in the 90s. Jump into a room, when you see something maybe shooting at you, you back out. Try to drag it into a hallway where, hopefully it can come in front of your gun. One of the things that I was really excited to see in this game was that we have an upgrade tree. Or a wheel, really. But you don't get that in a lot of shooters. It's awesome. As you play and kill things, you're gathering experience and you level. You get an upgrade point every time you level, and you can spend that point to kit out your character the way you'd like. And it's not just you spend it and you unlock everything. No. I could build my character, and by the end of the game, I have slightly different things than you might have, because you can't get everything at once. You can increase the efficiency of your flashlight, you can change weapons, get more health, you can adjust your ability to get experience quicker, or you can also upgrade various skills. Skills are also pretty interesting. They give you skills, 4 for each character. You unlock them along the way, and these are things that could really help out in a pinch. You'll press Q, E, F, or G to trigger them, and you can do that when you have the proper charge. The reporter can summon a light sword, a camera to flash and stun enemies, a voodoo doll to create an explosion, and you can light a cigarette to slow time for enemies. I think the sword for me is the easiest to get my brain around, and it's easy enough to press Q in the keyboard, so I tend to have the most success with it. The priest has different abilities, and he can heal himself slightly. He can splash holy water on enemies, make himself invulnerable for a short period, or give himself a time where he has unlimited ammunition. All useful, but for me, I play the reporter a lot. That sword is really useful. Another interesting mechanic, I think, is on the lower right of the screen. There's this little meter. This is your sanity meter, and as it rises, things get a little more chaotic, and I'm pretty sure you do more damage as well. The music also usually kicks in at this point, and you're going to get this heavy guitar track to help keep you pumped as you're slaughtering stuff. I think it's a pretty neat mechanic, and I think it works well enough in this environment. When it comes to creatures, early on we only get a few different creature types, mostly zombies, or these, I guess they look like doctors in lab coats. But they start introducing more as you go, of course. There's this Night Watchman that's like a Cthulhu amalgamation, and he's got a tentacle face and a big gun, apparently. It looks great, and when you first encounter them, they're actually pretty rough. Well, actually, they're always rough. They've got a long-distance attack, and it has killed me many times. Eventually, there's also this asylum level where they're these little guys that I think they're on the floor or they're in the floor, and if you trigger them, they jump out and they're flailing around and they chase after you. They're kinda nuts to deal with. I think overall they have a pretty good variety in the enemy types, and eventually you do run into bosses, which actually I was not expecting. The first boss I ran into is basically this gigantic mound of flesh throwing stuff at you. It's gross, and it totally seems to fit with this cosmic horror theme. I liked it just fine, but I wasn't expecting to see him, because up until this point, the end of different levels didn't seem to end in a boss. It ended up with what was basically a horde mode. There's going to be some open space, a room, and it tempts you into the middle because there's going to be a reward there. Usually it's a key, there's some health, there's going to be ammunition, and you want that stuff. So you run up and grab it, and you basically have to grab it, and as soon as you get it, all these creatures start spawning in. When you get to these levels too, I find you really can't just stand your ground. You can't stay there, pull out your guns, and just unload and expect to survive. You're going to have to run away and try to get behind a structure and drag these creatures around into your line of fire. You kind of want to line them up, so hopefully you can get multiple without having to move too much. And then you got to keep running. It's this total storm of chaos, and it's fun, and it's a total relief when you succeed. I kind of thought all the levels were going to also be indoors. Based on the first level, everything felt enclosed, and I figured, well, this is what it's going to be like, but it's not really like that at all. Some of the locations are pretty clever. We definitely get catacombs and indoor stuff for sure, but there's an outdoor graveyard that's pretty awesome looking, and there's one level that you're running across the rooftops of a town, I guess. I found that one particularly appealing. They got a really decent variety in here. It's not like they just barely changed something. There's definitely a scope, and I appreciate that. The game also runs smooth, super smooth. Sometimes it feels almost too fast, or at least when I play the reporter. I think she might move a little faster. You can adjust easy enough, but things get moving in this game for sure. I think it also reminds me of the game Blood, just a little. That's a gothic horror sort of styling. The graphics aren't quite as good or as smooth as this, but if you don't know what Blood is, it's a classic late 90s first-person shooter. If you like shooters, you owe it to yourself to give that one a try too, because I'm a fan of it. And I'm really a fan of this game now too, because, man, this really has held up in a lot of different ways that I wasn't expecting, and I really appreciate the environment. The whole cosmic horror, Call of Cthulhu type motif we got going here really works for me. I'm going to be giving Forgive Me Father 2 a try when I finish this one. That one's a little newer. I think that came out this year, but I'm definitely curious to see what might have changed between the two versions. Well, that's all I have today for Forgive Me Father for Steam. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and hope to catch you on another video.